White or red?
Yeah, white is fine, yeah.
Normally you need a lighter and two persons for the
This
sound.
This is a low
sound
budget. It's a
low
low
budget.
budget.
Very low budget.
It's a low budget project.
That's true.
When are you born?
38.
You're born in 38. Where did you spend your childhood?
Well, my childhood was wonderful because we lived on the riverside, in a river in central Germany, and we were 10 children, 6 cousins and 3 brothers of mine. So we were 10 children, and we had the house was directly on the board of the river, and we, as a young child, 2 years old, we used to fall into the water, and we were saved by the elder cousins, and so we learned to swim and boating and so on. And the man. 1 year later, when I get conscious, when I was 2 or 3 years old, I remember first the men were absent. They were in the war.
Yeah.
There were only women, aunts, and the grandfather. He looked like you. He had a long beard, white, and he was a patriarch, very, very nice person. A self-made man, okay. And my father too, he was in the war.
So you're raised among ladies and children mostly, and the
Yes.
grandfather.
Yes.
And what are your first conscious memories of the wartime or just post-war time?
Well, my first impression of the war, post-war, was when we came back to Western Germany in 45, after a half year after the armistice. We arrived after 3 days of train and stops and so on. We arrived after Odyssey. We arrived in the city of Osnabrück, where I grew up. Later, went to school, and it was two-thirds. It was destroyed.
Yeah.
And we arrived in the morning at 4 o'clock, and we were not allowed to get. My parents had a home there. It was at the outskirts of the city, and it was not destroyed, but it was occupied by elderly people who were bombed out.
Yeah.
So we had just 1 room or 2 rooms, I think, and no beds. Anyway, this morning, I will never forget this morning, because we were not allowed to get out, and my father, who had been prisoner with the British, and then he was dismissed, he was free, and he began a discussion with the officer, the British officer, saying, I have been a captain, I have been a soldier too, and let my family go. But he said, no way, 6 o'clock is wie sagt man, Sperrstunde? It was no-go time. You know?
Yeah.
So we were not allowed to
Couvre-feu, like they
Voilà,
say.
cool.
Yeah.
And in the morning at 6 o'clock, when it was November, I think, at dawn we got out with our wagon, and I saw this city, those houses with empty windows, and you saw the heaven through the windows. You know, it was completely ruined. And this, I never forget this situation. You know.
You told me some time ago about a soldier who went down by parachute.
That was before. That was my first rencontre with the war, because there was an American plane was short, and the soldier came down by parachute, and he was, I don't know, anyway, he was dead, and he lay, and we were not allowed to run there and have a look, but we did, we did it, and we ran there, and the first dead person I saw, you know, and he lay in the grass like sleeping, you know, and his parachute like anyway, it was peaceful. The impression.
Okay, then comes the post-war, and we're not going to go in details into anything, but what do you think has been your first emotion or any hint of you becoming an artist or becoming a painter, interest for images and so on? When do you think it starts?
I don't remember actually. Somebody, I had this confirmation, which is a
Catholic,
which is Protestant rite, and at the age of 12 or something like that, and somebody gave me. We had nothing, as in the post-war time. The first years we had practically nothing to eat and nothing. Nothing to play with.
Toys.
My toys. My father sawed wooden sticks and made toys of it and so on. But I got a color box, you know, and a brush, a small brush, and so I was initiated to making watercolors. and then as a pupil, I had a bicycle. We had one bicycle for all four children, for boys. But I took this bicycle and rode out in the villages where there are houses in Colombage. How do you say, wooden houses? You know, with, framework houses, and which look white and black and so on. And some trees in front and so on. And I used to paint that, to sit down and I had a block of paper and then I thought watercolors. And I began to. My grandparents had books on a series of books, the blauen Bücher, the blue books from the 30s, on German painting in the Romantic epoch, or Impressionism. Impressionism has had a big impact on me. And
with color, was it already color reproductions?
Partly. Some color and most black and white. And I saw Degas, stuff like that, and I began to draw the portraits of my colleagues in school, you know, the classmates. Even I've got some, and I recently, 2 years ago, there was a meeting of our school class, and I had those
sketches
in Cray and Kreide, also pastel, something like that. Yes, and then I had a teacher, a very interesting and nice man, who was a refugee too, as a big part of our teachers who came from the East, which was lost for Germany, you know, which was occupied by, which was now Poland or Russia and East. So it's zone, and he saw those sketches of the schoolmates, and he became interested, and he is responsible for, to shorten that, he is responsible that I began seriously to. He taught me, by example, he showed me oil painting.
Yeah.
And he made me copy a portrait of Verrocchio. Verrocchio, you know who he is? Yeah. Portrait of a lady in profile, and he showed me. He taught me how they at Renaissance time, how they composed and technically how they got around with the painting, the Grundierung, was heißt the ground, and then design, and then the white tempera, and then oil color, and so on. So anyway, I began to be interested, and finally, my parents, who were very liberal, they said, "Artist, it's you can make a life of it."
The usual thing.
Yeah.
The usual thing.
So, if you absolutely must do that, you could go to the art school, but you have to parallel. You have to make studies in literature, German literature, and so on, and which I did. So,
so you went in art school.
There was a competition. You had to give a exam. Karten, wie sagt man? You had to show them.
Yeah.
And send them
un
dossier, justement. I was accepted.
Yeah.
I was completely overwhelmed. Berlin at the time was an island, you know, in the Soviet zone.
Sure.
Okay.
So how old were you when you came to Berlin as a student?
At 20.
20.
20.
Yeah.
And then I entered this art school.
Yeah.
And and I had a teacher from the Bauhaus, an old man who was nice. My later father-in-law, my first father of my first wife, he had a big property in near Berlin, and he hid some Jewish deputy from the Reichstag, and he protected this artist from Bauhaus. You know, Berlin was still a battlefield, destroyed, big building,
ruins all the place.
Yeah, and then later, after some years of study, a group of students began to look for a space to exhibit, to show our works, which was the first self-organized gallery in Germany, and has become pretty famous, Großkirchen, because we rent a loft in the backyard of this of a house, Großkirchen Street 35. And there was several. I think we were 12, something like that, and some have become very famous. By example, Markus Lüpertz. And Hölicke and so on. and there I had my first show.
So you had the place where you were working and showing at the same place. It was also the
No.
It was only a gallery.
Only a gallery.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Only a gallery.
Then
60 years ago
I think
from today.
when I think about your work, the earlier work I know from you, at least on your catalogs, is a word which is of course very
Political.
very
Sure.
political,
Yes.
and a lot of famous people appear there. Adolf Hitler and other kind of
Stalin.
Stalin, and also a kind of quotation from propaganda images.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. It's, very soon with my first show, I was recognized as a political artist, and I called my paintings Historienbilder, history pictures. It's which is a category. It's a little bit ironic. The category of in the 19th century, the Kaiser, the German Kaiser. He loved historical scenes, big scenes of battles with the Prussians and so on.
Yeah.
And in this allusion to that, I call them Historienbilder with justement, exactement les images from the propaganda. And I was influenced by several, by two or three persons, and first there's a Russian filmmaker, Mikhail Rom, and he made a film, famous film, der gewöhnliche Faschismus, the normal fascism, which shows the German society, German people, and they're crying and shouting and celebrating Hitler and all those, and Hitler's poses and Hitler's attitudes and so on. Der gewöhnliche Faschismus, the fascism, the common fascism, and the other. Another influence is, without doubt, is Walter Benjamin. Das Kunstwerk im Zeitalter seiner technischen Reproduzierbarkeit. The artwork in the epoch of its technical reproduction. He talks about photography, but the last chapter is a famous chapter on the influence of mass propaganda on the masses in Germany, by example. And the slogan, the chief slogan is the fascism doesn't fulfill the needs of the workers' class, by example, but it gives them an expression, so they see themselves as part of a big movement and so on. And that's what I was fascinated by. And the third probably is Masse und Macht, Canetti. Elias Canetti, Mass and Power, which is research or philosophy on how and why the masses in the 20th century ran after Mussolini and Franco and Hitler and so on, and Stalin. But there's another reason why I began to deal with fascist images and so on. That's why the school the city of Osnabrück, where I went to school, the school where I went was a humanistic high school.
Yeah.
And I learned Greek and Latin and so on, a little bit English. And the atmosphere after the war, in the 50s, was humanistic, but not one word about the past, just
the recent past.
The recent past. Practical. It was as if it hadn't happened.
Yeah.
And I saw this destroyed city with whole windows, and I knew the stories, and I heard the stories of my father from the war and so on. So it was a sort of revolt against this Catholic, humanistic. The slogans were antique, antique philosophers, Greek stuff and so on, and Goethe.
Yeah.
Humanist, humanist.
So everything old enough so that nobody has to mention, for instance, Nazism or wars.
It was. There was silence about that, And, except one very good teacher who had other items. Okay, so it was partly a sort of revolt.
So how was it regarding the audience, regarding the public, when you started to show...
in Berlin.
Show Nazi, kind of quotation of Nazi.
Berlin was different.
Everybody knew these images, of course.
This was my first exhibition in this self-organized gallery was at 62 or something like that. 62, yeah. And the whole enterprise, the whole initiative with this gallery was absolutely new and self-organized, autogéré was absolutely new, and the press was very much interested. Because immediately we had the city press of Berlin. They found that very interesting and very modern and very okay. Anyway, and I had very good critics, and I had a collector very early. I had a guy. There was a man who was a pharmacist, and he made much money by a pill, a medicament against Krampfadern. Was ist das? Against disease of which in the legs, the veins. Vein disease. Anyway, he made much money with that, and then he founded the first car washing.
What is that?
Car wash. Auto wash under. So he was, and he began to notice this new upcoming gallery, and he began to buy. He bought from two of us, another one who is much more famous than me today, and me. Mm-hmm. So he came and he bought in the gallery, and then he bought for he came every 3 months he came in my. I had no studio. I worked at home. I had an apartment.
Yeah.
And I was just married, so he came and had a look, and then he said, "I take this one." Okay, and it cost something like 500 Deutschmark.
Yeah.
You know? And then, we had, I was just married, and we had no, not very much money. We had no money, and so I waited for him. And he came and bought his picture and his painting. But one day he came and he looked at the new production, and then he said, "No, I'm not no longer interested." And then I remember I had counted on this money, and I ran behind him the stairway down and asked him and begged him to buy a painting. But he said no. He had switched to Negro masks.
Yeah. But
African art, you know.
But it.
And these paintings, let me say that these paintings were later bought by an important Berlin gallery for nothing. The whole collection he had from two of us, you know, Hölicke and me, and then today, or some 4 years or 3 years ago, a collector and gallerist from Paris came and bought those paintings for his gallery in Paris.
Yeah, fine. And tell me, was, as you say, that at school nobody told about the war, about Nazism. It was not just at school. What was the reaction of the art people when you were showing these things that obviously few people wanted to see?
I think we were the protagonists of a new movement, which was called Berlin Realists, because our teachers were abstract.
Yeah, at this time,
artists.
It was almost a must.
Tachism from France and American Pollock and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And or Bauhaus, as mine was. And we began to paint the city life, but in a figurative way.
Yes,
So we were called, soon there was a sort of style, etiquette called Berlin Realism. Opposition came from Düsseldorf. Düsseldorf was the modern place. It was at the time already Beuys and Richter.
Yeah.
No, Richter came later, but Düsseldorf school, and they, not me that much, but the others were more or less, they were influenced, or they took, wie sagt man denn, Herrgott, to the German realism in the 30s, in the 20s,
Yeah.
30s, like Georges Gross, or Otto Dix, and people like that, inspired my colleagues. Not me that much, because
They were really related to the war, these people, to the post-war.
Yeah. You mean
Crippled people,
Dix and Ross and people like that. But their style was critical and kritischer Realismus. The critical realism of Berlin was called this movement.
Yeah.
And but I was more rather early. I saw American. Yeah, I was not that much influenced by the 30s, more by Kitai very soon. The American painter Ronald B. Kitai, a Jewish painter, who is my god. I mean, he is. I think he's the most important, together with Bacon, by example.
Yeah.
But Bacon is okay. Kitai.
Yeah.
And he,
Meaning a kind of movement that announced the end of abstract painting to some extent, because
yeah, sure.
nowadays there are very few
Mm-hmm.
abstract painters among young people. It's almost finished.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, when did you start to exhibit outside this gallery and outside Berlin? How did you went to New York at some point?
I was lucky. I got several invitations. I got a scholarship for New York. Yeah, that's true. This was in end of the 70s, 79 actually.
Yeah.
I got a year in PS1 primary school 1 in Brooklyn, which is Queens, which is a very international, renowned place for artists, and Germany had a place there, you know. And so by wonder, I got this for 1 year. But before I had the chance to go to Paris. That's it. As a student, I think I was heißt bewerben? I put my candidature for
A stipendium.
For Paris, and the guy, and I didn't get it, but the guy who got it was the second one. The guy who he didn't. He had some personal problems, or I don't know what. Anyway, it's then it came. I got it. It came to me, and I went to Paris. And in Paris, this was a very interesting time. It was after the Algerian War, and I used to live at Clignancourt, Porte Clignancourt, chez des Juifs d'ailleurs. In Paris, I went to the École des Beaux-Arts. Et la classe, le prof de la classe, c'était un très vieux monsieur, Souverbi, qui était membre de l'Institut et qui in English. He was, and he began his talk saying, "My friend Picasso was still alive." You know, Picasso was still alive. Yes, but in Paris, I saw the Americans.
Yeah,
that's it. I saw Rauschenberg and Lichtenstein and by Sonnabend in the gallery Sonnabend. And I was very much impressed by the Americans, not by my French.
You didn't know them before?
I knew more or less, but I never saw
the works.
The works, you know.
Sure.
But Sonnabend had all the stuff, you know, very fresh. This was Paris, and then later I got this chance to go to New York. PS1, which was great time in New York. I made watercolors in New York.
Like the one behind you.
Yeah. Exactly. No oil painting, practically. No, I didn't do any oil painting. But
Why? It's more handy. It dries quickly.
probably
Practical reasons or aesthetical choice also.
aesthetical choice too.
Also,
Yeah, there's a school in American art of watercolors, big big size. Pearlstein and people like that. Very progressive stuff. Post pop art.
Yeah.
Post pop art. And I saw very much theater and very thrilling performance art and stuff like that, you know. And yeah. And then I had PS1 is a very famous place actually, today, also today, and we had a show there, and people liked that.
Yeah.
My watercolors, you know, cityscapes, and yeah. And then I came back to Berlin, and I met Ute Schmidt. I had several exhibitions. I had no money, and I came. New York was very well paid, and all the foreign or the American artists whom I met, and the foreign artists, especially the American, they envied me. You know, they couldn't believe that you got a scholarship of something like $800 per month or something like that.
To go to New York,
yeah.
to New York, yeah.
Because they had to work, wash dishes, or you don't know, they drive taxis. Not me. I was rich for them, and then I came back to Berlin. I had no money, no job, and but a group of well-to-do people who learned to make watercolors, and they said that this painter Ulrich Baehr, he's back in Berlin, and he is out of money, and you should buy. Go to
Exactly. That's very true.
Then they came and bought.
Yeah.
It's hard, you know that it's difficult, hard to survive or to make a living being a free artist. You know, you have to sell and to have galleries and so on. And
The gallery?
But you never had to do another job. You always lived as an artist.
no, and actually I forgot about that. I have learned or studied to be a teacher, an art teacher.
An art teacher.
I did it for 1.5 years, I think, and then I worked as an art teacher in a high school.
Yeah.
Or even longer. And then for 3 semesters, 1.5 years, I was assistant professor in Braunschweig, at the art school in Braunschweig. And then one day, an ancient colleague from whom we had exposed, whom we had showed in Großkirchen, in this famous, which didn't exist anymore, but he had made a show there. And he was a professor in Hanover. Yeah. And there was a place vacant, and I got it.
Yeah.
In Hanover, this was really interesting because before I went to Hanover, we had this Jubilee festivities of Berlin, 1250 years of Berlin or something like that. Birth of, the birthday of Berlin. And there were
actions and activities, and a friend and a group of intellectuals, architects, planners, city planners, and writers, and so on. They planned a big show, open air, in the area of a destroyed main station, Anhalter Bahnhof. Anhalter Bahnhof. There stands the ruin of the facade. It was a very big hall, and all the trains went to the west. The big station for the west. And in this space, which is open air space, we set up this exhibition, and I was responsible for the participation of the artists, and I had to do with Fostel and people, lots of
Yeah, I
artists.
remember. I was there. I came there.
You have been there?
Yeah, at this exhibition. Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely sure.
Incredible. Mythos
Mythos
Berlin.
Berlin.
Mythos Berlin.
Mythos Berlin, yeah.
Mythos
Because I
Berlin.
played
Mythos Berlin.
I played in Café Einstein at this time.
Da,
Yeah.
da kannten wir uns schon. We knew each other.
Yeah. I was
Okay.
there. I had
You
this
had
honor
been
to
there.
know
Yeah.
you.
And with the composer, I personally had a sort of sound installation in a container, in 2 containers, iron containers, you know, with music of this composer and was noch? And I had some installations on it. Okay, it looks a little bit like cassette.
There was something in trains also.
Yeah, there was a train.
I remember,
Yeah, exactly. This was
that,
Lokomotive. Was sagt man denn? With hammers on it by Wolf Fostel and stuff like that.
So, looking at your work, as I knew you around, I don't know, 80. I met you first, I think, 82 or 83, because my son was a little boy. He was born in 79, so when we met there, and then you were still in this kind of political oriented paintings with the apparitions of famous faces or famous figure of great politicians or sometimes writers. But then I noticed that after a few years, you kind of dedicated yourself to painting nature. It seems that you concentrate somehow on pure painting, pure. You didn't need a narrative behind.
Yeah.
Your art was kind of self-sufficient.
Yeah, it's true, and but it's not the whole truth. I think I was a little bit bored by those storytelling pictures. D'ailleurs, by the way, the pictures, the paintings, those political, historical paintings, they were not really, they didn't deal with the story, with the history, but with the image of the history.
Yeah.
You know, the perception of the visual apparition of politics and history. Because I don't depict events, you know. I depict.
But somehow your painting moved from indoors or cityscape with dramatic scenes, which are not, I would say, which are not explicit. But you can imagine dramatic scene. The tension was very high tension.
The simple reason is that I bought a dacha, a house, a presbytery, a big, wonderful place in north of Berlin, in the countryside. And when you go there, you pass through alleys, you know, wonderful oak or beech tree alleys, and I was fascinated by moving through this nature, and yeah, it's true. It's but I'm as you mentioned, I used up to today. I used to work on certain series, and then I drop it and I begin another one, because there are artists who are obsessional, fixed on one theme, you know, always the same.
And very often it's because it sells, so they don't want to change something that sells.
Yeah, but some are they're changing their interest.
Yeah.
As Picasso.
Your friend Picasso.
My friend Picasso. Yeah, it's true. So I was fascinated by by passing through this nature and this alleys and surrounding Berlin, the lakes and this stuff, and yeah. But as you see, my last series is I return to
The ghosts are The ghosts are coming back.
The ghosts are coming back. Exactly.
Yeah, your I would say actual style, which you're painting these days, has seen Mr. Stalin and
Putin.
uniforms sometimes and dogs sometimes, and Mr. Putin is there sometimes.
Mhm.
So kind of back to history.
No, it's not history. It's a present time, and we had where we because of Ute's research and origin and so on, we often went to Eastern Europe and had lots of contacts with people from there, from Ukraine and even Russia. And I have been in Russia together with Ute. In Moscow, and she had scientific contacts, many. So I was interested in what happens to the societies under Soviet realm, you know. Soviet government, Soviet system.
Yeah, and also you have been living when you lived all your life in Berlin, a big part of your life was surrounded by the socialist system.
Actually, and I had contact to the GDR.
And you could see it from your own window, because
actually
your workshop is exactly at Friedrichstraße.
My studio is at
I
Czech.
remember your door in this year when I visited you. It was very easy. You say, my door is the last door on the west.
Yeah, it's true.
Then it was the wall, Sheikh Monchali and the wall. So from your window at the fourth floor or third floor, you would see only the Eastern Germany.
Yeah, exactly. I saw the separation of the world and of Europe, and I saw the clash of East and West, and which happened, which is symbolized by the Czech Monchali. Okay, but as I began to explain, I'm more and more. I was, let me say, fascinated by upcoming suppression, growing suppression of the civil society in Russia.
Yeah.
The space for breathing for the society was more and more reduced, and the opposition was suppressed by means of poisoned and shot and killed, and even outside of Russia, and the opposition was suppressed and thrown in jail, put in jail, and so on. So this increasing suppression, I was fascinated by that, and then and it began to work, to think about that and make my own visions of this situation with this series, which I began 2 years before the Ukrainian war broke out, and I called it comics because the only way to deal with is irony. It's a comic, you know. There's bourgeois interior room, which is often wrong in space and so on, and it's colored like comics are, red and green and yellow walls and so on. And people sit there and do have their everyday life, reading paper and feeding their dog and so on. And they don't realize and notice that through the window and through the chimney and through the staircase comes the ghosts of not the ghosts of Stalinism or this brutality from before, you know.
Yeah.
And they didn't, and the society is well, it's a very interesting and very moving experience. It's a mixture between, and the propaganda is absolutely fabulous. Putin propaganda. It's a mixture of devoutness, of the devotion of the people who don't move too much, you know, because the authority is always above.
Big Brother is watching.
Yeah, that's one, and then fervent nationality, you know.
Nationalism.
Nationalism.
Yeah, sure.
Nationalism. Excuse me. Nationalism, and this narrative that we always had been attacked and great Russia.
Which is something, unfortunately, that these years we are living is coming up in every country. You know, make America great again, make Italy great again, make Russia great again.
But but Russia is special because they interpret think themselves as a victim of the West, and we always thought Russia is a part of Western society, but it seems to be
now they're splitting.
Now
they're splitting. Yeah.
Okay. That's why I was occupied by this obsession, this stuff.
Yeah.